Hi, everyone. I'd first like to thank the IYRC and its staff for organizing this opportunity, and I'm very excited to share my research process and findings. Today, I'll be presenting my research on the role and significance of Instagram on the lives of menstruators. First of all, I'd like to briefly introduce myself. My name is Remi Takahashi, and I am currently in 11th grade. Other than being a student at K International School, Tokyo, I pride myself in being a plant lover and sticker collector. I'm interested in human rights and women's and gender studies. And the last little fact about me that is a little bit more relevant to the topic I'll be talking about today is that I had my first period when I was 10 years old. Here are a couple disclosures. Some of my slides may include graphic images of blood, and I'll be discussing a sensitive topic that remains stigmatized in some parts of the world, so you may feel a bit uneasy or bothered by some of the content. So let's start off by taking a look at this picture. What do you think of? What are your initial reactions? My initial reaction was shock, then unease. When I was 13 years old, I was scrolling through my Instagram feed and I came across this picture. By this time, I had had my period for about 3 years and I was used to seeing blood. But seeing this picture made me feel uncomfortable. Why? I had been affected by the menstrual stigmas that are still widely prevalent in some regions of the world. This vivid memory was one of my motivations for conducting this research. I wanted to investigate what other people's reactions were like when they're exposed to menstrual content like this in a public setting. Before getting into the specifics of my research, let me introduce you to the topic of menstruation. Menstruation is cyclic bleeding that occurs from female reproductive organs, the uterus, between the first and last menstrual bleeding, and it can impact women's physical, mental, and social well-being. Menstruation has been surrounded by many myths and taboos, which reflect menstruation in a range of negative attitudes. These stigmas are rooted in ideologies that construct menstruating women and blood as impure and polluting. Such discourses indicate a societal imperative to ensure that menstrual blood remains concealed, which relates to the theme of concealment. This theme has been reinforced by advertisements of menstrual products, which usually promote the idea of concealment, leading to the creation of menstruators' fear and embarrassment of exposing their blood. The presence of such taboos on menstruation have prevented well-informed discussions that can help menstruators better navigate this experience and build their confidence. Recently, there has been a surge in social media use for amplifying feminist expressions by allowing women to increasingly disclose their personal lives and vulnerability, leading to increased awareness. Similarly, menstrual activism has become popular in the media as activists post photographs of menstrual blood and launch hashtag campaigns. Due to increasing menstrual activism, new ideologies have begun to emerge. For example, normalization is an ideology that is actively used in the menstrual activist community, which encourages people to talk about this topic confidently. As mentioned before, my own personal experiences with menstrual Instagram posts was one motivation for my research. However, other than this, my discovery of the menstrual hygiene day was another even greater deciding factor for the formation of my paper. Through the popularization of Menstrual Hygiene Day, a day dedicated for raising awareness about the challenges menstruators face, social media has become a common tool for promoting these campaigns. So this paper will examine the role Instagram plays in mediating discussions about periods between Instagram users and the effect menstrual posts and its comments have on the users. Next, my methodology. My methodological process was primarily divided into 3 separate stages. The first stage was the collection process, where I typed hashtag period into Instagram search engine and collected 50 of the most recent posts and its captions as of April 2022, as well as its 3 most recent comments. All types of posts, captions, and comments were gathered as long as they're related to menstruation and periods. The second stage was the analysis stage, where I used a digital qualitative analysis software, MaxQDA, to categorize the posts, captions, and comments I had collected into different categories, which are referred to as codes. Here in Table 1, we can see the 3 sets of 7 to 8 categories I used to organize the posts, captions, and comments. Finally, as for Stage 3, I used MaxQDA's code frequency function to derive the frequency and percentage of each of the codes used. This data was then compiled into a comprehensive table. I just summarized my methodology, but more details on my methodology and the selection process I used for categorizing the contents can be found in my paper. I would now like to briefly outline my findings, which I have summarized into 3 tables. Each table includes the different categories, the frequency of the content categories used, and its percentage compared to the rest of the categories in the set. I'll now only cover some of my more significant findings, since the rest of my discussions on the findings can be found in my paper. If we look at the table 2 on the left, we can see that 32.9% of the Instagram posts collected were categorized as informative, meaning that the majority of the posts included information about menstruation. Meanwhile, posts categorized with the supportive code and the appreciative code were the least frequent. Meanwhile, if we look at table 3 on the right, like the posts, the majority of the captions collected were informative. The least frequent types of captions were categorized into the complaining about periods code was 8.1%, and the appreciative code was 3.5%. Now for my findings on the Instagram comments. The code frequencies for Instagram comments vary from the posts and captions. The supportive comment makes up the majority with 36.4% instead of the informative code. Meanwhile, the informative code for the comments made up of only 2% of all the comments analyzed. It was one of the least frequent type of comments. The appreciative code, which was the least frequently used code for both Instagram posts and captions, makes up for 9.3% of the comments collected, making it not the least frequently used code for the comments. I'll now move on to my analysis and discussions of my findings, but I'll only be briefly summarizing some of my more significant interpretations, so please refer to my paper for the rest of my analysis. First of all, for both posts and captions, the informative code was used the most. An example of a post categorized with this code can be seen in post 2, which is on the top right corner of the slide. Post 2 addresses the most common symptoms of endometriosis and shares tips for handling this menstrual disorder. With these posts, posters normalize discussions on menstruation, reflecting the progress of menstrual activism and suggesting that Instagram is a platform for advocating change. These posts also contribute to creating a supportive community for menstruators on Instagram. The second most common category of posts and captions are relatable. Through posts that incorporate humor and sarcasm, such as memes, users share their menstrual experiences and pain without exposing themselves directly. The posts create an opportunity for gaining validation and sharing empathy, allowing the posters themselves and the viewers to ease their stress from different struggles they can possibly come with menstruation. Sharing personal stories tends to be more revealing as posters expose themselves unfiltered. For example, post 5's caption at the bottom left of the slide mentions the poster's experiences with PMDD symptoms. These stories are usually redemption stories where the posters reveal how they overcame a menstrual disorder or problem. By doing so, menstruators can gain confidence. The Instagram posts categorized under revealing are even more indiscreet about menstruation, showing direct efforts towards normalizing blood and abolishing concealment. Instagram has disseminated this new concept of periods as being honorable and prideful. However, there are considerably few revealing posts, meaning people are still hesitant to accept this new notion. Let's now look at the Instagram comments. Supportive comments are the majority and are usually praises or affirmations, such as shown on the right side of the slide, post 1's comment which says, love this, and post 11's comment, never define yourself by something like PMDD. This indicates that commenters are compassionate and supportive of menstrual posts and menstruators. These supportive comments can provide validation for the posters as they receive positive feedback, and by exchanging supportive comments, menstruators in general can benefit from Instagram as they feel recognized and less excluded, enhancing their confidence. Personal stories comments are also common. For instance, post 14's comment mentions, I was in a mood for days leading up to my first PMDD. Instagram allows people to express their struggles and successes. Struggles strengthen sympathy, while successes encourage empowerment. When menstruators respond with personalized experiences, it validates the posters and eliminates their fear of being judged or unrelatable. These private stories also humanizes periods, helping non-menstruators to realize that menstruation is real and not so foreign. And finally, there are many comments that included heart emojis. Heart emojis were red associated with power, pink for love and friendship, and white for purity appeared the most in the comments. These colors could portray the commenters' different perspectives on menstruation, but ultimately the heart emojis allow commenters to communicate their support and appreciation towards the posts while transcending cultural barriers. In conclusion, menstruators use Instagram to expose themselves as strong and vulnerable individuals. This disclosure has normalized conversations on periods, eliminating the negative attitudes associated with periods. A range of posts contributes towards creating a sense of community. where menstruators and non-menstruators are bonded together. As they communicate, menstruators can feel elevated with increased self-appreciation and self-worth. Instagram has also been commonly used to provide accurate and well-informed discussions regarding menstrual difficulties and management methods. This could positively influence menstruators' menstrual and mental health by resolving their uncertainties associated with menstrual management. The confidence and self-validation gained by menstruators on Instagram is then supported and strengthened by the comments with supportive messages and emojis. Now I'll discuss the limitations of my study and future research I would like to recommend. One limitation of my research was that it was limited to Instagram, so it is vital to note that other platforms may convey periods differently, and the user's receptions of period-related content may be different. I would highly recommend future research to be conducted on people's portrayal of periods on different platforms such as Twitter and YouTube. A second limitation of my research was that the posts, captions, and comments were limited to the ones written in English, so the content selected may only be reflective of English-speaking users. It would be insightful if a more diverse sample of posts and comments could be analyzed and compared to explore people's varying perspectives of menstruation. Finally, what are the future implications and significance of this study? Increased disclosure and discussion about menstrual conditions and management methods could positively influence menstruators' menstrual and mental health by resolving their uncertainties, especially during the pandemic as concerns rise about hygiene and health. Heightened recognition about menstrual management methods and health-seeking behavior is crucial. Finally, more menstrual content not limited to social media can accelerate the spread of menstrual awareness, increasing people's recognition of the overall menstrual movement. Finally, I am extremely grateful for my mentor, Ida, who has guided me through my whole research process. I would like to also thank you, Tokyo Academics, for introducing this wonderful opportunity to me, and thank you to the IYRC for hosting such an inspiring conference. Thank you to my parents, especially my mom, who has always been by my side during my ups and downs. And thank you to my audience for listening. These are my references and citations, and that'll be the end of my presentation. Thank you.